and it was in 1941. Because my grandparents in Japan were all well, all meaning my father's parents and my mother's parents, so my 4 grandparents were in Japan. And of course, in those days, to go to Japan, between Japan and Canada, you had to go by boat, and it was a long trip. So not many Japanese living here, they wouldn't go back to Japan every other year like some of them do today. So my grandparents wanted to see the grandchildren. So in the summer of 1941, my mother took the 4 younger children to Japan. Then it was while we were in Japan when the war started. When I went to Japan, that was with my 4 brothers and sisters, 4 of us, and my mother, because my father was still, you know, he had an important position at the sawmill, the company, and my older brothers were going to school. So, and we were supposed to just go for one summer to see our grandparents. And we were supposed to come back to Canada, but before we could get back, the war started. So when the war started, there was my mother and 4 of us, plus our older sister who was in Japan from before. We were in Japan, and my father, with the older brothers, was in Canada. So normally my father and the older brothers would have to move to a camp, because 22,000 Japanese had to move to the camps in the interior, the relocation camps. You may have heard, or there is a place called Tashimi, which is 100 miles from Vancouver, because the evacuation order said that all people with Japanese blood are enemy people, and therefore they must be moved 100 miles from the coast. Well, and Hope, the town of Hope is 90 miles from Vancouver, and just 10 miles out of Hope is a place. This is strange, the Japanese who could, carpenters or anybody who knew how to build something, they were all assembled and they were sent to build the places where their families were going to be located. So my father took several carpenters with him and joined the team to build these camps. But before, I'm not sure if he went, not very long, because he was asked, because of his position in the sawmill, and this company where my father worked also had sawmills in Ontario. And there was a sawmill and a shipbuilding facility in a place called Schreiber, Ontario. Schreiber and Fort Williams are called the Twin City, and today those 2 cities are together. It's called Thunder Bay. So my father, through the company, was sent to Schreiber, or he was asked to go to Schreiber to run the sawmill, because when the war started, many of the Canadian men were conscripted to join the Canadian Army, so they were short of manpower. And my father, having the experience of running a sawmill, being a millwright, and also managing so many 100 workers, so he was asked to go to. So he did not go to the relocation camps. And my 2 brothers, because when the Japanese were evacuated to Tashimi, to Kaslo, to New Denver, the men were asked single men were asked to, or they were told to, join what was called the road camps, to build the railway to build the highways and so forth. So my two brothers went to road camp. They didn't actually go to the relocation camps. And eventually, they joined my father in Schreiber, in Ontario. So if you can imagine the war starting, half the family, or more than half the family, the mother and the younger children are in Japan, and the father and the older brothers are in Ontario in the sawmill. So our family was completely separated. And when we were in Japan, of course, we don't know what happened to everybody, who was in Canada. And my father and my brothers had no idea what happened. There were some bad rumors that, the Japanese that went to Japan, and when the war started, they were treated as enemy people. And when we were in Japan, I guess my mother heard that all the Japanese were treated as an enemy person, and there was some truth to that. Of course, the Japanese in Canada were shipped to the relocation camp. So it's a very unusual situation compared to some of the other families.